Hello and welcome to A Celtic World, the YouTube channel connecting Celtic fans all over the world, from Campbelltown to California, from Dunoon to Dubai. Wherever you happen to find yourself on this pale green dot, you're part of A Celtic World. And who else is part of A Celtic World? Well, we have a regular face in Stephen in Australia, in Sydney. How's it going there, Steve?
Yeah, pretty good, Gav. Pretty hot weather just now, and a 40-degree day yesterday, so sweated my way through that one. Bit of a relief today, a little bit cooler. I'm on a 4-day week this week because we've got a public holiday on Friday, so happy days.
Nice.
Happy to be here.
And who else are we happy to have with us? Well, we have two prodigal sons returning for prodigal sons for different reasons. First of all, Dano, welcome back. Tell us where you've been.
I've been in the Midwest in the States, specifically Chicago, Milwaukee area. Just spent a month. My first vacation in 4.5 years. It was fantastic. It was so good to see family, friends for the first time in a long, long time. Since pre-pandemic, man. I haven't had like really time off or anything. My schedule is manic. So yeah, feeling pretty good about that.
Well, we feel pretty good about having you back, and even better about having Kaiser back, the mysterious lesser spotted Kaiser. Kaiser, in the comments, people have been saying, like, where are you? Have you been let go on a free transfer or something? Or, you know,
I was,
so can you explain your absence of late?
I've been locked in the frozen tundras of Ibrox. It's actually like there was this snow cave, and there was this strange animal that had me hanging upside down, big white thing. Don't know what was going on. Some sort of plot of Star Wars, I think it was. Yeah, basically, just with the change of the times, for the global time, us being a global community, kind of switched the time up to be 9:30 a.m. for me. I have kids to get ready for school and stuff, so sometimes it can be a bit challenging in the morning, especially when I sleep in, which has been happening, Gav, so I'm very sorry.
And you lost your phone.
Yes, I lost my mobile as well. I actually had my mobile upstairs, and all the Christmas decorations were being put away. So I was taping up the boxes and putting them away, and that's the last time I seen the phone. But I checked the boxes before I put them in the loft, so I've just settled for it's gone for all eternity. The phone is lost.
Well, that's an extra little present for you next Christmas when it drops out of the box, when you pull the tree out.
Yeah, last Christmas, phone. I lost me my phone.
Very good. All right, so what are we talking about today? Well, first of all, we're going to cover the game. Thistle Do Us, as in we're in the hat for the next round. 5 goals. Fine. I see we already have a comment in there from Frank Brennan. Jesus, it was very lowly and very little Buckie Thistle at Celtic Park, for goodness sake. Not Barcelona. And so in that context, a professional 5-0 win against that very lowly and very little club. And we move on.
I think a classic saying is talent beats hard work, or hard work beats talent unless talent works hard. So our talent obviously worked hard. And I know if I was playing at Paradise in whatever capacity, I would be giving it my all. So if you're under the illusions that the lowly Buckie Thistle turned up and rolled over, they did not. I was actually quite impressed with the way they played. But I'm sure we'll get on to that as we go on.
We'll get on to it, yeah, for sure. And you can only beat what's in front of you. Second, we're going to talk about, well, transfer tittle-tattle. What do we know? What might be happening? What would we love to see most? And we haven't had you guys here for quite a while, so I look forward to hearing your thoughts on that. If we've got time, we'll talk a little bit about loans and the potential for doing more loans. Is that something we should be doing more of? Which we keep planning to talk about, but we never get around to it because Steve goes on for so long that the time just ebbs away. And then finally, Celtic socials. So that's what we're talking about. All right. So let's talk about the game then. Let's give it due attention. Stephen, let's start with you then. What did you make of the starting lineup? Was there any surprises there?
Well, I think the biggest surprise was the inclusion of Odin Thiago home in midfield in place of Callum McGregor. Nobody expected that, I don't think, but it was a very welcome sight. I think we're all in agreement, and I've certainly been very vocal that McGregor plays far too much football, both for club and country. So I really didn't think they would take this opportunity to leave him out, but they did, and happy to see him in there. The other notable absentee was obviously the new signing, Nicholas Kuhn. But I think word had leaked out beforehand that he wasn't going to be included. I'm not sure whether there's a fitness issue or whether he just hasn't trained enough for the squad, but he was left out. And apart from that, the rest of it was fairly as expected. Cameron Carter-Vickers obviously not wanting to be risked. At this stage of his recovery from injury. Hopefully we'll see him back next week though. And apart from that, it was really all about the bench with Rocco, the lesser spotted Rocco Vata, the man of mystery, the enigma wrapped up in a puzzle, appearing on the bench after the Willie wanted to sign a new contract. And, I can't make head nor tail of this one. Maybe looking forward to getting some of your guys' thoughts on what's going on with Vata after seemingly being destined for a move before the end of the window. There's rumours circulating that we've offered him a new contract, or we're going to offer him a new contract, and then he appears on the bench, gets a run in the team, and gets on the score sheet. So I can't explain it, I can't understand it. So who knows what's going on there? But yeah, apart from that, all pretty expected.
Yeah,
all pretty expected. Okay, and then the game itself got underway. Dano, did you watch the game live?
Yes.
Yes,
I watched the game live.
What time was it where you were?
1 a.m. So,
okay.
But I just flew halfway across the world, started a new job at this music venue. I went to bed both nights this weekend at like 6. So that was fine. It was midday, effectively. It was Glasgow here in Gwangju. Yeah, watch the game. I mean, every time you play these tiny little teams, there's like tension. There's so much tension when you play like a smaller team that you should be, right? So once it got to like 20, 25 minutes, you could kind of sense a little bit of apprehension going on, but it was fine. We were making plenty of chances. And I liked some of the players that got a chance during the game. I liked what I saw from the starting 11. I'm a big believer in Nabrotsky. So, yeah, I mean, the game, obviously, once we got the first goal, went pretty swimmingly, man. Everything was fine.
Well, I didn't get to watch the game live. I've seen the highlights and stuff. So can you refresh my memory as to the order of events? Like the first goal was what's his name?
Bernardo. No, wasn't Bernardo the second? Oh, was he his first and second goal?
With the first goal.
Bernardo's chip, that was lovely. Our superstar from Portugal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and O'Reilly had 2 very, very good assists for the first 2 goals. I mean, he was involved in both. I would probably say he was man of the match overall, but yeah, Bernardo is really, really coming into his own, you guys. I mean, his last 4 or 5 games that he's gotten a shot have been unbelievable. So this was another example. That chip for the goal was superb, especially after we had so many offsides, and then goals ruled out for whatever reason. Especially Abada was a step or 2 ahead of the offside trap, like for a long period at the start of the game. But yeah, Bernardo's first goal was amazing.
Wasn't the nicest thing about his first goal? I mean, the pass was gorgeous, but the way he took it with those 2 quick touches, was kind of otherworldly. That was pretty difficult what he did.
Yeah, and also realizing how much that he had time and space and utilizing it like to perfection. Goalie had no chance.
Mm-hmm.
Kaiser, talk to us about the second goal then.
I was busy when I talk about the first goal. It was so nice, but yeah,
okay,
second goal. Then. I believe the second goal was Kyogo, was it not, who came in for the second?
That was Odin Holm.
Odin Holm who scored the second. I'm very sorry. Not really memorable Holmes' goal, as you hear there for me. I'm not really picking it out to memory, but I thought the presence of Abada really highlighted that what we had been missing for large parts of the season. that what's been missing for Kyogo's game. See that short pass across the area, which we've seen Abada, right? Okay, he was trying to spring the offside trap and he was caught offside quite a lot, which I thought was very funny as well to hear Kuhn at half-time say, hopefully not so many offsides in the second half. It was a slight left jab towards the other winger, which I enjoy because it shows his competitive nature. He's just in the door. I believe the word was for his lack of an appearance was that their winter break where he came from, they had shut down already for 4 weeks prior to ours. So this week is like his 5th or 6th week in winter break without training because it sort of elapsed over here. So he's looking to pick up match sharpness. Of course, when you come in and it's our support into it, it's Celtic support, we're highly critical. We judge players. Life on a knife edge at Glasgow Celtic. So I would certainly want to be putting my best foot forward and not be underprepared or slightly unfit. And as Stephen says, I heard a lot about Rocco Vata. In the background. I heard he was facing some personal stuff due to misconduct off the field and his behaviour in the city centre. Supposedly filmed purchasing a white powder of the devil's dandruff variety.
Is that
and that charge has just been thrown out.
Allegedly. That's all allegedly.
But that's what I'm saying. That's the kind of thing that you're hearing. And then you're hearing people saying as well, perhaps the interest that the club has seen in Vata coming from across seas, especially Italy, has made the club look at him again and say he's a viable option for sale, even if we don't want to keep him. We don't want him walking out the door for next to nothing.
Kaiser, you're dropping knowledge bombs and exciting conversation there, but getting a bit ahead of ourselves. We'll come on to Vata.
I've been away a long time. I'm excited.
Later. Just contain yourself. All right, Stephen, take us into the second half then.
Well, we had the third goal before. We had the third goal before half time, though, didn't we? Want to talk about that one?
Yeah.
Kyogo Furuhashi's goal from the Abada cutback. I thought, I agree with Kaiser. The introduction of Abada on the right was excellent. Sort of unlocked a lot of what Kyogo's been missing, albeit he went early a couple of times and got caught offside. But some of the early square balls from Abada were meat and drink for Kyogo. And I think if he carries on doing that and just gets the timing of his runs a little bit better, then he'll get back in his score sheet and get back to the top of the scoring charts. I think before we move on to the second half as well, we should really give a big mention to Joe Hart. Joe Hart, it was an absolutely terrible day. The weather was honking and he had very little to do. But just before half time, he was called to make a save when the Ross County centre forward was through in goal. And if that goal goes in, it was 2-0 at the time. That becomes 2-1 and everybody starts to get a bit nervous. And the whole complexity of the game looks a bit different. Now, I've been critical of Joe Hart and his reflexes and his agility, but he was spot on there. He got down really well and saved that shot. So, fair play to him. He stood up and he was counted when he was really needed. And shortly after that, we went 3-0 up, and at 3-0, the game's pretty much put to bed. So into the second half, and very early on, we get the fourth, and it's Lewis Palmer, who probably didn't have the best first half. He had a bit of a problem getting to the byline. It's not his forte, but his forte, as we know, is cutting back in on his stronger foot and having a shot on goal, which he did with great effect, and it was a really accurate strike to the keeper's near post. Great goal. And that was really the signal for a raft of changes in the team. So we saw a lot of substitutes coming after that, and we saw the introduction of Vata. Interestingly, he played for a good bit of the game as a centre forward, and I'm just wondering if the introduction of Vata into the squad is maybe a sign that we're not going to sign a striker between now and the end of the window, and he's just looking at options there for a striker backup in case something happens to Kyogo. And introducing Vata into the squad, you've then got the option of Vata through the middle, you've got the option of Abada through the middle, and you've also got the option of Palma through the middle. So I think that's my feeling on why Vata's suddenly come in from the cold out of the blue like that. And you know, he did well. He certainly looks as if he's put a bit of weight on, a bit of muscle, a bit of build, and that's maybe something he was lacking last year. And his movement for the goal was really good. And I mentioned to Mikey Johnson for a great assist to that. So good to see both Vata and Daniel Kelly Daniel Kelly making his debut at 18 years of age, and Vata getting another appearance and his first goal for the club. So that's good to see.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Matt O'Reilly earlier, Dano. He was having a field day, wasn't he? I mean, obviously it's against lower league opposition, so there's going to be spaces, there's going to be opportunities to exploit that you don't normally get.
Yeah.
But he was just absolutely masterful looking, wasn't he? The way he was stroking those penetrating through balls around.
Yeah.
What a player when he's on song.
Yeah. And Bernardo too was, I mean, like Buckie Thistle could do nothing to get the ball out of their own half, like 99% of the game. And I'd say O'Reilly and Bernardo were big reasons for that. Their midfield could just do nothing to start distributing the ball. Like they were just all over everybody. But yeah, O'Reilly with the ball was phenomenal. I mean, always just kind of making the right decisions. And we've seen it all year. So you start to kind of take it for granted. But yeah, another amazing game from Matt O'Reilly. Incredible.
And you talk about Bernardo there, you know, he's winning plaudits all over the place, how he's grown in time. Here's a question from Donald Sheehan, Kaiser. Guys, I'm a huge Hatate fan, but does he get back into the team with Bernardo playing so well?
Well, I don't think he walks straight back into the team. Perhaps he has to, he will get his chance. It is Hatate. We know how good he is. I'm a massive Hatate fan myself. So I don't think he just walks back in with Bernardo playing the way he played. I mean, we all knew at the start with Bernardo playing in the Champions League but not playing domestically, there was something there that we were not putting our finger on. Brendan came out and later said that perhaps he needed a bit of physical development just to be up to pace for the physicality of the Scottish game. They're marking him right there and saying he has a technical ability to play in the Champions League. He clearly has a technical ability for Scotland. Obviously, it's amazing how many times I watch him on the park and I actually confuse Matt O'Reilly and Bernardo up. I mix the players up. Pardon me. I think the way the midfield's moving right now is very dynamic. You see sometimes Matt O'Reilly will drop slightly shorter and Bernardo will come over onto the right-hand side as well instead of just staying fixed on the left. With Holmes sitting deep as well, he played more of Callum McGregor's role, with Callum McGregor being an extended rest, shall we say, being left out. Don't think any injury or anything or knock was reported, so I think it was just, as Stephen led to, an extended rest, well needed. We all know how many minutes Callum McGregor plays a season. I think Holm was really played really well. He was disciplined. He sat deep. He was threading balls through, allowing the freedom for O'Reilly and Bernardo. And of course, you can look at the quality of the opposition. But at the end of the day, as Gav says, you can only beat what's in front of you. And those guys turned up. They brought their boots. You know what I mean? They never came in their slippers. They came to play.
Yep.
So I thought we'd done, not reading too much into it. As Frank Brennan says, we were not playing Barcelona. It was a lowly Buckie Thistle, a small club. But at the end of the day, we can look at the fact that we've not had any pre-season, any friendlies, in the winter break. So we've had not even behind closed doors games. We've had nothing to look at. The players have had a total break. So I was kind of looking at that as this could be a friendly, a competitive game, a warm-up game, a cup game, everything all wrapped in one. And I was delighted with the way we performed. Professional. Yeah. We played well.
Yeah. And I'm
one
a big
player who played
believer
well,
in
who
Holm,
I'm seeing getting a lot of praise, is Abada. Stephen, do you think all this talk about him being under pressure from back home and all that do you think there's any truth in that, or can we believe Rodgers when he says he's going to play a big role in the second half of the season?
Yeah, just before I talk about Abada, just quickly on the midfield three of Holm, Bernardo and Matt O'Reilly. And have we ever had a better looking midfield three than that? That's my question. Three very handsome guys who wouldn't look out of place in the cover of GQ magazine. So yeah, I think we should make that point.
Well, I can sense now. I can sense right now that John Collins has just lifted his top up and started exposing his six pack. Like, come on,
he's
Steve.
doing it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Collins doing ab crunches as we speak, just to prove his point. I think Abada. I think definitely the sort of the news that's swirled around him it's got to have an effect on him. He's a young guy living away from home. I mean, he's getting pressure, obviously, from mainly from people in his own country who just don't want him maybe at Celtic, his international team manager, and various other people have had a pop at not only Celtic as a club, but the Celtic support, labelling them as anti-Semitic. And, I think the club itself could have maybe had a little more to say about that in defence of the fans. But I think it's only natural that that Abada's probably feeling it. You're feeling the pressure, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if he left the club either in this window or the next one. But I think in Brendan Rodgers, you've probably got the ideal guy there to put an arm around him and sort of steer him through this difficult period for him. And let's hope he can, because you could see yesterday, although he had a bit of a problem staying on side for most of the game while he was on. You can see what he brings to the team. He gets in behind, he runs beyond a lot better than any of our other wingers managed to, and he's got this link up already with Kyogo. He seems to know exactly what runs Kyogo's going to make, and he was unlucky himself with one chance which just went by the post. So I hope we could come to a decent resolution with Abada, because he's a really good player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The other thing is to think about is, there's so many players. You're starting to kind of see this 20 to 23-year-old group of players at Celtic really kind of starting to come together, and you can see a vision happening, I think, like between Abada, Ole, I mean, you have Holm, O'Reilly's still only 22. I mean, it's a really impressive group of like lower 20s players that we have at the club, man. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. I think
too bad we'll be losing some of them in the summer, but
probably, Gav. I think I said
inevitably,
a few times that we were waiting on these players to come of age. We were hoping it was going to be in the Champions League this season, and last season as well. We were waiting on it. Just get the feeling with Matt O'Reilly and the younger players that are in the squad, they're on the cusp. You just on the verge of blooming, and we see it with Matt O'Reilly right now. He is certainly blooming, and there's some big interest in Matt O'Reilly. Should we manage to hold on to him, I think that would be a top priority, especially in this coming summer with the new Champions League format coming. If we manage to hold on to him and keep him here for that other European stint and see how we go, I think that would be a big draw for him. Abada as well, as Stephen says, he's got to be facing a lot of pressure from back home. I know like there's national service and stuff, and I know they're patriotic people, the Israeli people, and I understand that in a dispute, sometimes the lines can be blurred between who's right and who's wrong, but supporting one cause does not mean you're dead set against the other. And I don't think the Celtic support are anti-Semitic, because we certainly show plenty of support to Abada. We love having him at the club. I think he's a fantastic player. We'd love him to stay. I think the political views of minority of fans groups, even if it is the largest minority of Celtic fans have that political view, I think that shouldn't really affect players in the modern day and age. They should be allowed to play out their career, and maybe Abada should be looking at moving on, or is looking at moving on. The squad that was named did have a kind of look about it. You could say everyone in the shop window who's looking to get loaned out or moved out. You know what I mean? It did have that sort of everyone in the shop window look about it. Mm-hmm. So you could say that as well. And Abada certainly impressed. He's direct running and he's cutting the ball back. Definitely shows what we've been missing, not only on the right-hand side, but with Palmer's play as well, cutting inside all the time and going for a shot. Sometimes you need to exploit your other assets and hit the line and drive that cross across. We see it so often with Mikey Johnson as well. Too much dancing and not enough. For always a direct player, not enough directness. He wants to beat the man 2 and 3 times. So Abada really brings that different element. And I'm glad we're now signing him as they're watching and seeing. And he'll be hearing the rave reviews of that performance. He's a pacey player. So hopefully he takes that into account and modifies his game accordingly to supply Kyogo.
Yeah, and also it just seems like he's coming out of just a bad 6 months of his life generally.
Yeah,
He basically injured himself, and then he's got the Palestinian conflict going on in the background and all this kind of stuff, rumors swirling around about him leaving Celtic or whatever. And it probably felt great to get back out on the field for him. You know what I mean?
Well, let's move on to Rocco Vata and Daniel Kelly. Did anyone notice the differences in the way Brendan Rodgers spoke about those two players in his post-match interviews? You're nodding, Steve.
Yeah, definitely. He definitely. It was qualified praise for Vata. I think it's fair to say. He said he had played well and done well, took his goal well, and praised him for his movement. But he also said he had a lot of work to do. And I think the phrase he mentioned was, to be a real professional player or something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing.
Well,
but
I've got the quote.
Maybe, yeah, what was it exactly he said? It was something like that, wasn't it?
Well, I took down notes from the salient bits from what he said to Viaplay and to Celtic TV. So this is him talking about Vata. He says, he has potential. He needs a lot of work. He's strong. He has decent pace and he wants to score goals. It's all about discipline for young players, doing the work, having the right attitude. And then to Celtic TV about Vata, he said, for Rocco, he has a lot of work to do, but he gets the feel of it. You can see he's physically in a good place. Just needs to focus on the game and the discipline of being a top professional. So yeah, he's clearly saying that there are issues with this guy, and it's attitude and discipline and professionalism. Now, Kaiser, I don't know whether we can circle back to your Peruvian marching dust. If there's truth in that, that could be what he's referring to. Could be a bad attitude elsewhere. I don't know.
It does kind of hint that maybe his off-field behaviour is less than professional. Not saying that he's in. I'm not, like, as I says, that's kind of like speculative. I don't know if that's fact. Like, so I'm not speculating, but you can only say what you've heard. You know what I mean? I can only say what I've heard. So, like, in the comments for the manager there, it certainly shows that maybe if he gets his act together off the field and becomes that professional and he's capable of it, you know what I mean? We've seen it from Callum McGregor. He was in a bit of trouble when he was younger, ended up going out on loan. He made the change. Look at him now, the consummate professional, constantly training, always perfect diet, keeping his cell in prime condition.
Exactly, yeah. It might be all that stuff. I mean, that story might not be true, of course, but it might be an indication of maybe his lifestyle off the pitch, as you say, is a bit sort of not what's expected of players who want to get to the very top.
Yeah.
I've got a bit of sympathy with Vata though. You've got to remember, he's not even 19 yet. He's still an 18-year-old kid. And last season he made a couple of appearances in the team under Ange. So he's probably gone into this season. And we had Matt McGlone on last week, who's good friends with the Vata family. And he said that in the closed season, Celtic were making it clear to him that they wanted to keep him. But then they go and sign 3 wingers. 2 of which are Yang and Tilio, who, in my opinion, are certainly not any better than Rocco Vata. And in case of Tilio, probably not even at the level of Rocco Vata. So straight away, he's been bumped down the pecking order by 3 places at a time when he's hearing that Celtic want to keep him. But that's not a message that the club was sending. So he's not came close to a first team appearance this year. And I certainly, if he was my son, I would be advising him not to sign a new contract. I'd be advising him to look elsewhere. And I think that's probably what his parents are telling him. I think we need, it's a two-way thing. I think Celtic need to show faith in Rocco Vata, and I think Rocco Vata needs to show faith in Celtic. And I think it's a two-way street, and I think we can't have it always. And I would have liked to have seen him in the first team squad in front of guys like Tilio and in front of guys like Yang, who are just not, to me, they're not any better than him. And a couple of years older as well.
Stephen, it baffles the mind to think the trouble we've had in the right-hand side. We've brought in Tilio, an injured player who's not featured, and Yang, a very raw talent, a rough diamond, a rough gem who certainly needs refining, when we could have had Ben Doak and Rocco Vata competing for the right-hand side position. it baffles the mind players of that quality we are allowing to leave, who leave our club, leave our youth setup, and go and get a starting place in a few games for Liverpool. Now, they looked at Ben Doak and thought, quality player, quality enough for the Premiership, but we looked at him and thought, no good enough for Scotland, wee man. It just, it baffles belief, the players that we should have competing for these positions, instead of players that are now looking like going out and loan, we're paying their wages for nothing.
Well, let's talk about another one here, and that is Daniel Kelly. And contrast Roger's words that we just looked at with these ones about Kelly. He said to Viaplay, I've been really impressed with Daniel from when I came in the summer. He's a really young player, but he's got real good physicality. He's naturally left-footed. He's got good energy. His attitude is so good. At the Celtic TV, he's got an unbelievable attitude, and I would expect him to progress. And hopefully days like today give him that encouragement. So he's banging on the attitude again in the positive this time.
Maybe a bit of a coupling, so to speak, with Rocco Vata and Kelly. If he's saying that Vata is lacking some of these key features that looks like he's going to progress, and then comes out and speaks about Kelly and says he displays these features, maybe hang about with him a wee bit, Rocco, you know? Stop going to the pool hall with your pals, and you know what I mean?
Maybe he's going for like a roommate setup, you know? He's foreshadowing like the traveling roommate setup.
Well, I'm sure if you asked Rodgers, he would say, look, there's tons of players who've got the talent to make it, but, you know, without the attitude and the application and all that, I mean, that's what sets them apart, separates the wheat from the chaff.
Like Tony.
Yeah, and also sets the tone with all the youth, really. I mean, when he talks like that, they're getting the message 100%. So, it's interesting to see Rodgers go like that.
I think it's going to come with opportunity as well, though. They have to get opportunities to play first team minutes. I mean, if you take the case, the biggest success in the last decade of the Celtic Youth Academy was Kieran Tierney, and probably the only one who we've sold for really big money. And, you know, Kieran Tierney got into the team by mistake, really. It was really a chance occurrence when there was a bunch of people injured. He wasn't even first choice for the Celtic B team, and he wasn't one of the more highly rated youngsters at the club at the time, but he got his opportunity, seized it, took it with both hands and never looked back. And that's down to him and his hard work and his dedication to both the club and his own game. But I think we have to be a little more bold in giving these players a chance, which is why, as Kaiser alluded to, I don't understand why we signed all these basically substandard wingers and are playing them in front of him. And guys like Yang, who showed some things, some good qualities, but he's 3 years older than Rocco Vata. And so in 3 years' time, what kind of player is Rocco Vata going to be? I think he'll be a miles better player than Yang. And that's where I think we're failing as a club. And I understand it's difficult. You know, nobody wants to lose games, but every game's a must-win for Celtic, so it's not easy to introduce players. But if we're ever going to, you know, make a step up from where we are just now, one of the things we have to improve is the amount of our youth players who we both bring into the first team, turn into quality players and turn for a profit after that. That's where we should be going as a club. And it's where we've definitely been failing over the past decade, and probably more.
Well, that's maybe where the loan conversation comes in a little bit later. But let's just finish off the Buckie Thistle bit of the conversation with a couple of little clips, which you may or may not have come across.
The penalty one that was looked at, it should be looked at, it's offside. You know, but they had to, for some reason, as protocol according to the fourth official, that they have to look to see if it's a penalty first before they look to disallow it because it's offside, which just seems ridiculous, really. You know, if it's offside, then the penalty doesn't even matter, as we know.
Don't know if everyone could hear that at home, but did you like that little "as we know" at the end? Enjoy that?
Just a little shot across the bow. I think
I'm sure about it.
For me, I understand
Celtic will be asking for the VAR audio.
That comment was offside. understand like the domino effect in the way the decision is made, right? They let the play continue, so the ball must go through. Is it a penalty? Yes, it's a penalty. Well, it doesn't matter because it was offside beforehand. That's the way it goes. You know what I mean? But the decision for the penalty or not is still made. I'm sure if our striker went through and got his leg broke, and then the referee went, "Oh, it was offside," you know, just rewind that leg break there. Just that back together and get up on your feet, son. Walk it off. You know what I mean? You're not going to be happy with that. There is downsides to continuing the play. There is elements of danger with continuing that. I preferred it certainly when the player was offside. They just stopped it right there and then and went, offside, guy's offside. VAR looks at it, he wasn't offside. And it's how do you continue the game from that point? If you do run it in the old system, you know what I mean? It's very hard to restart. What do you give the team then as that creative chance? A free kick, a direct free kick? But you know what I mean? There's a lot of complications to it. So I understand it's not as simple as it seems just to implement VAR and run it correctly. It's certainly not when we've got like yogurt pot walkie-talkies and we've went for the cheapest form of VAR possible.
All right. Well, talking about doing things correctly, here's another little clip.
I was delighted when Brendan Rodgers came into our changing room after the game. He was class act. You know, he gave us a wee speech. He did a wee speech and said he was delighted with our attitudes and you know. So yeah, they gave us so much respect, which is good. You know, they took it serious, and that was good. We'd rather have played against that than maybe a second string team. No disrespect, you know, but so we're glad they put out the full team, and yeah, the guys can, you know, they can keep that memories forever now.
So that was nice, Brendan Rodgers being a class act. He's a bit of a class act.
You need to give us an impersonation of Brendan Rodgers and what he says in that changing room to those guys, Gav.
yeah. That's the next song opportunity, man. Yeah.
But that was nice that Rodgers did the right thing and all that.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really inspiring moment for those kids, you know.
I thought it was excellent that we played a strong team. We played close to a starting 11. You know what I mean? As close as like missing Callum McGregor is probably the only change. But yeah, we played basically with starting 11. It was very respectful to Buckie Thistle. And like Gav, I heard Gav say, like, surely you come out and you give it hell for leather at the start. I think some of the Buckie Thistle players played really well. Some of their defenders were very resolute, defended very well. I was quite impressed with their striker. He was physical, he was fast. I was like, looks like a great prospect. Their keeper had the biggest bum cheeks I've ever seen in my life. I don't know what was going on there. He looked like that guy, Dano, that guy with the prosthetic ass that sprints. You know the guy I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That's every time I seen him on the screen, I was like, there he goes.
Yeah. You know, their right back, too, was giving Palma a pretty torrid time, man. He had a pretty solid game. I like the look of him, too, man. Strong player.
Okay. Well, look, we better leave it there. I think we've done justice to the game there, certainly, in that conversation. All right, let's talk about players. What do we know? Nicholas Kuhn, he's a player. We can stop talking about him. He's in. Owen Beck. Now, he came on for Liverpool recently, didn't he? So any chance of a loan move is out the window. Unless he goes back to Dundee. That's the only place he's allowed to go on loan to, apparently. So we have to buy him if we're going to get him. Is that one that you can foresee happening, Stephen, at all, or a load of nonsense?
We could buy him, but we wouldn't be able to buy him for the summer. So it'd have to be we can't play him this year. He can't play for anyone else now except for Liverpool or Dundee.
Can you not buy him?
No, you can buy him, but you can't register him. You can't register.
Oh, is that right?
You can
I
buy
thought it
him.
was just you couldn't loan him.
Yeah.
No. So he can't play for any other team except for Liverpool. So that's out the window now. And unless we've still got an interest in him for the summer, and I think that's probably more likely. I actually don't think we'll sign a left back unless it's maybe a loan signing now for 6 months to see us through the summer. I think probably when you get to this stage in the window, I think we've probably went down our list of targets and not managed to get them. And we're sort of now at like an emergency loan situation. And I don't think, I don't know if we'll go any further with this. the form of Greg Taylor over the past 2 or 3 weeks has been okay, barely, kind of passable. He's not as bad as he was in the early part of the season, and I think maybe they'll just leave it like that till the summer. Obviously, I don't agree with that. I think we should have had someone lined up and over the line by now. But I just think, with 10 or 11 days to go in the window, I just don't see it happening now. But Owen Beck certainly looked a player. He looked the part. He was quick, physical. He handled Maida really well when we played up there. And looked as if he was a really good player who could challenge for Greg Taylor's position straight away. But so pretty disappointed that one's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm. I think Stephen Owen Beck. I think Beck looked like he looks like a really good player. I think if we look at him on his loan, we would have looked and says maybe paying $4 million for him. We would have been right in there and steamed in for it. I think the mere fact that he's appealed for Liverpool and kicked the ball, they would be wanting about $14 million for him. So it's a complete no-goer. He's just got that Premiership tax on him instantly for appearing even one game in that league. So I think that's a no-goer. I'm quite happy about it, to be honest with you. I think Greg Taylor is good enough for a domestic situation right now to soldier through. And I would like to see Frame, as you said, I'd like to see the youth. I'd like to see Frame getting brought in, gaining that experience and brought in a lot more. Perhaps we have the replacement already there. Maybe that's what Brendan's looking at. As you said, with Vata up front as well. Perhaps we have these ready-made, oven-made players sitting in the background on a shelf, and we don't need to go looking for them in a notoriously hard window.
So let's, Stephen, get the 2 things out of the way. 1, you're wearing a Donegal top, and 2, have you ever played for Bayern Munich? That's what the people want to know.
So yes, I am wearing a Donegal top. It was sent to me over here in Australia by a very good friend of mine from Antrim called Jarlath. So big shout out to you, Jarlath. Thanks very much for the top. And 2, I've never played for Bayern Munich. I assume that's a reference to Alan McInally. It's a reference to Alan McInally, who a number of people have said resembles me. As I pointed out before, I do know Alan McInally, and he was actually at my wedding. He's a good friend of my father-in-law. So I know Alan McInally, and he's a very good-looking man. I'll tell you that right up when you're up close. So I'll take that one. Just while I'm on the subject, my father-in-law is in hospital just now having a bypass surgery. So big shout out to him, and I hope he
good luck to him, Stephen.
Yeah,
feels
good luck.
Yeah.
All right, Dano, you're our expert in Scandinavian goalkeepers, so I'm going to turn to you now.
Yeah.
And ask you, what know you of Vladimirson?
Not a fucking thing.
Or Valdimarsson, is it?
One time I bought my shopping at Iceland. I think I could discuss them.
Yeah, I have been to Finland for a nice 2-week vacation. It was lovely. That's about all I can say about this player.
You were
not Finland's not part of the... He's Icelandic, right? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Icelandic. I haven't been there, so yeah.
I mean, it's not America,
Not a fucking thing.
But
yeah.
Daniel's a flat earther. He's like, Iceland and Australia doesn't exist.
No, yeah, it does. Yeah, it's just.
That's why all these maps are flat. Look at them on the wall. None of them are globes.
Yeah, Iceland is right next to that giant mythical mountain at the North Pole that causes all the magnetism, right? According to the flat earthers. Yeah. So that's what I'll tell you about the player.
A couple of our players went to Iceland on holiday. Did you know that Palma was there recently? So was Alistair Johnson. But apparently Villa and Copenhagen have made offers for this fella. Valdimarsson, I've written here. I think that's right. Villa's been in excess of €2 million. So this guy's within our price range if we're talking that kind of money. Has anyone watched any of his YouTube highlights? I did earlier today, and God, it's exciting to watch him. Comes for everything. He's really dominant. He's good to watch. Big, tall fella. Loves to get involved. Yeah. It's like you watch goalkeepers like that and you think, what have we been watching all this time? You know, the way Paul once said on a show, in the modern game, goalkeepers don't come out for crosses.
He says it to me, remember, Gav? He was like, they don't exist, guys, are in the modern game. I was like, okay, well, sorry.
This guy definitely does. I think he could be an amazing signing.
Comes for everything, is dominant. Are you speaking of his like goalkeeping or bedroom game, Gav? I mean, like, what's
That's
going on here?
filthy talk. Let's slap you around the chops and move on.
That's what he's
I
tactic.
think he's a far more. I think he's a far more realistic option than Kelleher from Liverpool, who's also making the headlines. I mean, we discussed him last week, but I don't think the amount of money involved to get him with Celtic and the wages are making it probably a prohibitive move. But I think this boy looks as if he's probably more right up our street or more right up Peter Law's street, having a price tag of €2 million. That's his type of language. He's loving that stuff.
I heard it
was probably him that made the YouTube compilation.
He's on. Peter, edited by Peter Lawwell and the Lawwell group.
P-Laws Productions with a Z. Yeah.
Well, what I'm excited by is what Celtic have in their favour is that we can offer him first team action, and that it seems like that's what he wants. Either now or after the remainder of the season, which is a transition period between him and Hart. He wants to play, this guy, and Villa are talking about him as a number 2, and I'm not sure what the situation is with Copenhagen, but I fancy our chances competing with Copenhagen for a signing over perhaps Villas and the glamour of the Premier League.
Definitely.
Funnily enough, I think we need to sign 2 goalkeepers, to be honest. If it's true that Joe Hart sees his future away from Celtic next year, then if we sign a really good goalkeeper like this young boy, then we're back to square one again with Scott Bain as a backup, because Siegrist has obviously got no future at the club. So, technically, I think we need to sign a number 1 and a number 2. So, good luck with that, right enough. Try to get that Peter Law's wallet prized open enough to purchase 2 goalkeepers when we're desperate for one and can't even get one.
I mean, the Scott Bain era at the club needs to end, man. Like, for real. It's gone on way too long. It's probably 2-3 seasons too long here. So, yeah.
No, it's just not funny anymore, is it?
Right. It's not like you keep telling the same joke. It's like, dude, shut the fuck up, man.
It comes back in if you just keep telling it, Dano.
Yeah, right.
It's revolution. It comes back into fashion.
Yeah, it's not even like attempted comedy at this point. It's anti-comedy. So you're literally just trying to piss people off in the crowd and get them to walk out.
Let's have a team of goalkeepers. Joe Hart plays every position.
Right, exactly. So
we still wouldn't score crosses. He wouldn't go for them.
Okay, gents, so we've got a bit of time here, so let's talk about this issue of loans and how we can improve the situation of our fringe players. Quan has just gone on loan to the Biddies of St. Mirren, and was not quite buddies, it's more like the Biddies.
The Biddies. Yeah.
Anyway, he's gone to the B-Days and he's going to clean up there, we all think. No. Apparently he played very well in the first game. He was man of the match. Did you see that? That's pretty exciting. He was quite
the kid is a player.
We have no idea what he's like. We have no idea.
Exactly. You never got a chance. He's a player, man. He's a player. He's going to be very, very good.
Because you're in Korea, so were you aware of him before he came to Celtic?
Yeah, they were calling him the Korean Rodri when he was at Busan, man. When he was at Busan Interpark. I mean, but he's he's kind of like physically, I would say, like,
was that a training Busan?
Big size, and he's got a pretty decent amount of speed to him, man. I really believe in that player. I don't know why he's not getting any chances. Everybody just assumes, he must not be showing anything good enough in training. I think that's a pretty big leap of logic to be making about anybody who's not getting time at a club like Celtic or any big time club with a big time manager,
There's a ton of players aren't getting any time at Celtic. So
there's too many.
Wouldn't it be better if we lent them all out to other clubs in Scotland and got them playing? And
they need playing time, man. That, like, Quan, I'm really glad to see him get a move because he will get everyday playing time at St. Mirren for sure.
I love the fact that he's went to a dogged club to compete in a dogged midfield and fight. It's going to highlight his ability, if he has any, because we've not seen any at Celtic. We've not been allowed to see the player. He's not featured.
So
You know what I
weird.
mean? I feel very sorry for him because he's coming in and, like, as Daniel says, he could be a talent. You know what I mean? But he's trying to displace Callum McGregor. I mean, like, you need 4 packs of C4 in a truck to displace Callum McGregor for one game.
And even then,
You know what I mean?
I don't know if that's going to happen.
It's a hard ask. So I think getting him out to other Premier League teams and allowing them perhaps the ability to hurt our opponents while gaining experience and game time and having that match sharpness means if we do recall him, if there is an injury crisis, he can come in and hit the ground running. Perhaps Brendan will be impressed with him. As they say, best to stay in the line of sight. You know what I mean? Stay where the manager can see you. Big believer in that. I think out of sight, out of mind. Like, who knows what Mikey Johnson done in Portugal? None of us watched it. None of us seen none of it. So, like, none of us care about it. It's just, they just come right back to day dot. If he was at another league, if he was at another club within the league and displaying his talents, I'm sure we would be looking over eagerly and thinking, why is he not doing that for us? So I hope we pursue that a lot more.
Yeah.
Well, who else would we like to see go on loan?
Just to qualify that a little bit with Quan's move to St Mirren, he has been brought over there to cover for Keanu Bacchus, who's gone to the Asian Cup with Australia. So I think I'll wait until he comes back into that team to see if Quan still gets any more game time. But I think, you know, it is a good move for him. And as you're right, Gav, it's something. There's plenty of other players that should be good down that same route. I think one of them is Odin Thiago Holm, a player who could do with a 6-month loan spell at a good level. Sure. I think Yang is the same. I think he could do with a loan spell at a good level. And these players could all probably play at a decent level in another league, maybe in Europe, or maybe even closer to home in the English Championship or something like that. But you know, it's another place we're falling down in our transfer and our recruitment strategy. We're bringing in all these players with no real idea what we're going to do with them. We're stockpiling them with no place for them to go. You know, many other clubs have a full-time person who looks after loans and all the players that are out on loan, and that's what we should be doing. I've got no issue with Celtic signing a player like Quan from the Canadian Second Division if the intention is to put him straight out on loan to some team where we know we're going to get a look at him and he's going to get a good amount of minutes. Because at the moment, there's just no way for these players to improve. They're not going to improve sitting in the stand on a Saturday. And we don't have any reserve teams set up to give them minutes against a decent standard of opposition.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another point I have down here is, like, should we be bringing them in and loaning them out straight away rather than have them, you know?
I've said quite a lot.
Some of them for sure. Yeah.
That we should purchase a feeder club. I keep saying it, right? I've said it before. We should purchase Shamrock Rovers. They play in Ireland. They have pathways into European football. We should just scrap the B team setup. And more to the point, we should just purchase Shamrock Rovers and use them as our full B team setup, bringing on players at a competitive level, perhaps playing some European football, and then our reserves are playing at that level. It's a high level playing in Ireland. It's certainly a lot higher than the Highland League. You know what I mean? It's going to be a lot better for developing.
Or second tier in Austria. Is that how high level is that really?
Well, I think the Austrian top tier is quite a high level. I think it's quite underrated. You know what I mean? It's really a high. What is it? The Bundesliga there as well, I believe it's called Austrian Bundesliga. Yeah. So I think they've got quite a high level of football, especially in the Premiership. I don't know about the second tier there, and certainly if that was an option, and I know we are affiliated with a club in the second tier. Can't remember the name of them for the life of me, but we should be sending players there.
Admira Wacker, I think. I don't know how it's pronounced. It could be Admira Wacker.
Yeah,
which is what George Michael did.
We've just signed a winger from the Austrian Bundesliga, so let's hope it's a good standard.
I think it is, Stephen. I think it's an underappreciated league. You know what I mean? I know it's definitely not top 5, but it certainly is top 10 in the leagues in Europe. Stephen didn't hear me there. Just pretend I said something really intelligent. Well, aye.
That's a brilliant point you just made, Kaiser.
God, I know, Stephen.
Stephen, what do you think of that point?
I did hear it there. One of my earphones fell out, so I was scrambling to get it there. Sorry. I did hear you though. You're right.
I said
you're absolutely right, Kaiser.
Yeah.
100%, mate.
Spot on.
Yeah, just genius.
Oh,
The
everyone
reserve
stop
league as well.
talking just
I see someone piling in there in the chat, John, and saying bring back the reserve league. And I do understand the reserve league. I thought that was an excellent asset for the club, right? And that returning could be an option. And then you look at the reason why it was taken away. The reserve teams playing in the stadiums that the professional team was going to be playing on, perhaps the night before or earlier that day, cutting up the pitches. That was one of the biggest reasons that smaller clubs started saying, we can't afford all this groundwork. We can't keep the pitches in good condition. They started asking for the fake turf, and then we got all the cursed carpets. So if we're going to move away from that, and we need to protect the playing surfaces, you know what I mean? And the reserve league certainly damages the pitches while being competitive football for players who are on the fringes, which is really worthy. I think it needs to be looked into exactly the venues where they would be played and how they would be played. But certainly an option.
I think it's something we should be doing though, because I understand the cost aspect to it, but that's where like bigger clubs like Celtic and those guys from across the city should come into this. And you know, we've had this conversation in the past about how other countries have things like pitch funds where the bigger clubs pay a little bit more. You know, mid-range clubs pay a little bit less and the lower clubs play not much at all. And it gets paid into a fund, and that's used to upkeep grounds and make sure everybody's got enough money to have a decent actual grass pitch for us to play on. And I think the reserve league should fall under the same bracket as that. I would be quite happy for Celtic to make a contribution to keeping the reserve league as a viable option. And it's farcical, you know, that we're at the level we're at in Scottish football, but we have got teams who can't afford to run a reserve team. I mean, that's just farcical. And it falls in the SPFL as well, who are not doing a good job of this stuff. They should be part of the funds that they get through advertising, should be allocated to make this a going concern. It's something Celtic should definitely be pushing for.
It makes sense. Yeah. A hedge fund, so to speak, for developing the grassroots of players. They're, exactly, Stephen, like Celtic and the Joy division here across the city, in -8 conditions, you know, they should be putting their hand in their pocket, because it certainly does help to develop players. And as you said, with the pitches, we should, if it is such a concern, right? I know for a fact I've Googled, and I know what Google says about artificial turf, that your chance of a non-contact knee or ankle injury is increased 60% just by playing on artificial turf. So that's not even a challenge. That's not someone kicking you. That's you rolling your ankle or the knee damage caused just by playing on an artificial surface. So I think it doesn't really make sense for professional athletes to be playing on that surface. And some, say, CCV, between 15 and 20 million pound player, damaging his legs on an artificial surface just does not make sense for me.
Yeah, it needs to get banned, man. They need to start a fund, and it needs to get banned. It's ridiculous, man. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Okay, well, that's good that we explored that subject finally. Now let's move on to our social media choices. Dano, you're up first with this one. I hope you don't want me to make sound here, because it often
that's
doesn't
okay.
come out.
Now this is
from
just
God.
This just got a little bit of. I mean, I didn't want to play the whole thing or whatever. I just thought of this and to ask you guys the question today, talking about Lubomir Moravcik and Lubomir Moravcik. This is my sentimental favorite player of all time at Celtic. Now, you can always have your like, oh, he was the best or whatever. He's the GOAT at the club or whatever. But I'm curious to know what your guys' sentimental favorite player of all time is. Because, I mean, Lubo was amazing, but, you know, would you say he's like the best you've ever seen? He was very good.
I love the music. I love the way they're playing It's a Kaiser Magic. You know, just I've appropriated that song for myself. Loved Lubo. I love the fact that he said, wherever Dr. Joe is, I will go and play. Because Dr. Joe Vengelos wanted him. Fantastic player, as it says there, a gift from God. Absolutely amazing player.
Yeah.
There's players like who are not necessarily the biggest name that you would say, like Andreas Tom, who I enjoyed as a player. I thought he was fantastic for us. Phil O'Donnell, players like that. You know what I mean, Daniel? That I love. That may not be technically the very best player that ever played their various position, but I still enjoyed them for very different reasons. Lubo was one of them. Amazing player, but absolute talent. You know what I mean? Paul McStay. So many players that have been just so blessed to see.
Yeah, you know, like the sentimental
Lubo,
favorite, not like
me,
a star on the team, but you just absolutely love watching him play. You know.
I think Lubo Moravcik for me was the best technical player I've seen in all my time supporting Celtic. I've been supporting Celtic since the mid-70s, and so that's not a statement I make lightly. I've never seen a better technical player than Lubo Moravcik, and the only disappointment I have about him is we didn't get him 5 or 6 years earlier in the height of his career, because what a player he would have been. And there was also a bit of disappointment that Martin O'Neill just couldn't find a way to get him into his team with his rigid 3-5-2 formation. And he sat on the bench an awful lot under O'Neill. And when he did get a start, you know, the game against Juventus in the Champions League was just a very, very special occasion. And I was glad that he was able to make that contribution.
He was so old by the time he came to us. You know, I mean, he had a lot of years behind him, but what a player, man. I don't know. But any other names that come to mind? Sentimental favorites? I don't know.
Well, for me, my sentimental favourite is always going to be Tommy Burns. I was lucky enough to see Tommy Burns as a player, and you know, it's great that I was able to see him.
Yeah.
Interesting. A wee moment silence there, Stephen. Love it. And reverence. Just like that. Tommy Burns and reverence. Love it. So respectful.
Just the personality of the guy, and the fact he was so irrevocably connected to Celtic. He was just Mr. Celtic for me.
Yeah.
Well, he did a lot of things right, and here's somebody else doing something right. Stephen, this is your choice.
Yeah, just a wee good news story from the Buckie Thistle game. It was the son of the Buckie Thistle goalkeeping coach, who got a chance to meet up with his Celtic heroes, and Brendan Rodgers got him hooked up with a jersey, and it was just obviously added to what was a great occasion for Buckie, and hopefully the young man enjoyed it. And he's obviously went through a bit of a tough time recently, and I think it's only fair that we highlight some of the really good things that Celtic does. I think bringing Buckie Thistle down to the ground, it was a great occasion for all their fans. The support was amazing. The weather conditions, as we know in Scotland, have just been absolutely horrific. So to make that journey, I think there was 5,000 of them there, was just fantastic, and a fantastic occasion for them. And I'm just glad that we could bring a bit of happiness into a young man's life who's going through a tough time.
Just off screen there, Stephen, Peter Lawwell was standing with a card reader. He was like, it's 80 bucks, it's 80 bucks, son.
I wonder if he charged him for the letter printing. Probably did, didn't he?
Like the letter.
Right.
Very good. Okay, well, you mentioned the weather there. Mine is a bit left field. It's the weather's terrible. Some of the footage you see people sharing it on Twitter and stuff in Scotland, absolutely grim, horrible.
Yeah, it's windy.
But there are parts of Scotland
it's not -50 though, like it was in Wisconsin last week.
True. But there are areas of Scotland that love this kind of weather, and I've got this little clip to just sort of transport us to a different place just for a few moments, especially for those of us who live in hot countries. I think you'll enjoy this. It plays for like a minute and a half or something. So just relax and be zen like Matt O'Reilly as we watch this. There you go. Isn't that lovely, you guys?
Nice.
Yeah,
I actually went there on a school trip up to Glenshea Ski Resort.
Mhm.
It was my sort of. It was about that time I realised I wasn't very good at skiing and decided never to do it again. But yeah, nice, lovely place, lovely part of the world.
yeah.
Gorgeous.
I mean, where I was like 10 days ago, it snowed probably 35 centimeters or so. And it was a really wet snow, coated everything. And then it just snapped like minus 30. So all the trees were just like frozen with this coat of snow. It was really, really beautiful, man. It was amazing. I was sending David pictures from my trip. It was incredible.
What temperature did it get to where you were, Daniel?
At the coldest, like with wind chill, minus 50. There was one night in Milwaukee where it was minus 50, man. It was
not fit for human habitation.
It was absolutely brutal, man. I actually went to a show. I went and saw G Love and the Special Sauce that Sunday night with my brother and his wife, and it was so cold. You couldn't be outside for more than 5 minutes. It was the second coldest weather I've felt in my life.
I saw pictures of a wee lassie going out with like wet hair, and she was hanging her head, and then within seconds she put her head up, and her hair had all frozen like that.
Yeah. No, you would. I mean, you'd literally. I mean, if you took like room temperature water and poured it outside on the pavement, not like those bullshit videos where they're showing the water freezing in midair. It's so cold. That's all nonsense. But it would freeze in seconds.
Yeah, you throw it up in the air and it comes down as powder.
Yeah. You'll see that. Like if you spray it, if you turn it into a spritz, it'll just turn into snow, man.
Sorry, Stephen, I spoke over you a second ago.
That's right. So that's a 90-degree temperature swing from what it was here on the weekend.
It's
90.
I mean,
that doesn't even bear thinking about, does it?
It's unbelievable. Actually, did you know that Fahrenheit, which is the ridiculous medieval temperature system that the U.S. still uses for some reason, and centigrade, they actually cross at minus 40.
That's
on the way to
there, Dan,
zero
for a lot of those triangle-shaped UFOs we see in Scotland in the Falkirk Triangle there. My missus had her knickers out in the washing line yesterday in Parkhead. They were found this morning in Dundee. Like a sheet of glass, bro. 6 foot by 4 foot.
And look at this one here from Red Scotland. I nearly died up that way a few years ago, whiteout conditioned. Saved by finding an old outbuilding. Had to break in to escape the Arctic type weather. Great fun though.
Great fun though. Yeah.
My arms got slightly sunburnt today when I was out riding my motorbike. That's all I know.
I actually heard there was a tornado warning in Ireland and Scotland yesterday. Is that right, Kaiser?
Really?
Yeah, high winds. I don't know if it was actual tornado. Now, Ibrox has become Tornado Alley, such as filming. People have just seen us filming about here, bro, like disaster zone. Must have been a tornado. The finger of death. It's come down and just routed the Ibrox area, and I'm like, this is what it always looks like. You know what I mean?
A midwinter tornado, man. That is so bizarre. I don't even think I've ever heard of that, man.
Yeah, I've got traffic cones, Daniel, that I put outside my house when there's a game on because I don't like Ox parking outside my house. So I put my SPFL title defence cones out, and I don't allow them to park outside my driveway. So I had to take all those traffic cones and put them on top of my bin last night to stop it blowing away. That's the height of escalation. We were not boarding windows. I was not, and it's not like Twister. A cow just flew by my window. I was like, "Oh, Lara Wolf."
This sounds like a conversation that we have after we stop recording. But just to let you all know, we're still going here. The show has not ended yet. But let's bring it to a close now, shall we? Thank you very much, everyone in the comments, for taking part. We hope you enjoyed all our weather-related chat. And we even touched on Celtic a little bit before that. All right. See you guys. This is the original lineup. There was the 4 of us for the very first show, so it's always fun to have the original lineup back.
Get the band back together, baby.
All right.
The
Until
Untouchables.
Thursday. We'll see you all again on Thursday. Hail, hail.
Hail, hail, legends.
Hail, hail,
Cheers.
boys.
Hail, hail.